Hi. Thank you for being here with me today and welcome to the Conscious Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Delisa Abraham, leadership coach at Faith and Sparkles World. It is so important to have conscious leaders who are impacting lives, who are imparting to the next generation the wisdom that is needed to guide them, as well as to build the resilience, the strength, and the grace that is needed to move forward in their leadership. Help me welcome today Yasha Chapman to the stage. She is the CEO and the lead consultant at the Elementary Evolved Education. And I can't wait for you guys to learn so much more about her. Welcome, Yasha. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm well. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much for being here today. Introduce yourself. I know I could have done it, but I want it from your mouth. I want people to hear about you from you.
Yes. Okay. So like you stated, I am the CEO and lead consultant of Elementary Education Evolved. And I like to describe myself as an empathetic problem solver that is driven by both purpose and passion to solve solutions that we see in education, from beginning with new teachers to teachers that are veterans, but maybe still need some help within their instructional practices, and offering consulting services with school leadership, district leadership, as well to, again, solve problems and close academic achievement gaps for minority students.
Wow. Well, that is a lot, but it's so focused all at the same time because you're focused on the leadership to support the children and the youth. Yes. And that is essential during this time. There are some people who do train. I know in the school or the district, sometimes they will have some consultants come or motivational speakers that come in and kind of get the teachers those pep rallies. But right. What you do is slightly different. Explain a bit more about how you are the year-round cheerleader, leading the leaders or guiding them in their leadership role to support the children.
Right. So like you stated, there are some people that go in and they may do a professional development training, for one time, or they go in and they motivate. However, like you stated, I am there year round. So I don't just facilitate one professional development training and walk away. I am there to ensure that that training is being implemented within the classrooms, that whatever information they're learning, they're able to utilize it and ultimately transform their practices so that we can ultimately close the gaps and enhance instructional pedagogy, content pedagogy, all of those things. And so that's a bit more what I do. I am hands-on. So I look at either the school's evaluation system or I utilize my own, because Elementary Education Evolved has its own framework as well, where we look at each component, and Evolve actually stands for engagement, variation, owning, leveraging, visualizing to verbalizing, and empowerment. So depending on where that teacher is, that's the component that we focus on and we provide training around in order to see enhancements or improvement within that area.
Wow, that is in depth. And I love that because we live in such a time where we need that leadership training, where we need that guidance with educators. And I'm not saying that there isn't support. There is support, but as you're saying, you are on the ground floor, right? You're
Yes.
You're in the trenches, so to speak, but you're also working with the decision makers and the leaders. So, the first step you talked about was connecting with, I guess it would be like the superintendents or of the district and so on, and to find out, okay, this is where the rankings are in the school. This is the support system. This is the ethnic groups that are in your school system. This is who the teachers are. And some people may see that as being judgmental or you're trying to divide, but I don't think that is what you're doing at all. In fact, I'm seeing it more as a way to better support diversity and inclusion. So I kind of wonder if you could take me through, not just myself, but the audience as well, a little bit more in depth of like, what's the point in meeting with the superintendents of the district, and then meeting with the principal, and then you're going all the way, as I said, into trenches to support the teachers, right? And you're there year round. You're there supporting them year round, depending on, what grade level they're in, or if it's elementary or high school, as well as how they can evolve in their leadership to better support or best support the diverse students that are in their classrooms.
Right. So I start by looking at every school has goals. The schools has goals and the district have goals. And so my job is to look to see what those goals are and how I can best support them. Of course, if there are goals that are out of my reach, I'm very realistic with myself, and I'm very aware of where my skill set is. And so I only tailor my pitches to whatever their goals are. I have data to support how I've already addressed the needs of their goals. And so whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish, again, I've already succeeded in doing so. I have a background of traveling. I'm a military spouse. And so I've taught and dealt with education in about 10% of our country. And so with that, being under my tool belt, I'm able to easily point together the pieces and basically create this bigger picture of what everyone wants, which is success, which is academic progress, which is achievement gaps being closed for Black and Brown students. And so once we analyze the goals, I go into schools and I meet with the school leaders, of course, and we analyze their data. We analyze their practices, what is working and what's not working. Oftentimes, we have people that are not of color in leadership positions, but they're making decisions for students who are of color. And so I'm also a bridge to provide that support and that lens to help them see things in a way that they may not be seeing them, to provide that cultural relevance that may be missing on their school campus. And so we formulate new goals and new plans around the gaps that are present within the organization. And I work with their teachers. So when I say I work with their teachers, based on all of our findings, we identify areas where professional development training would be beneficial and where it's needed, with who is needed for. Because again, in education, when it comes to professional development training, every teacher is not on the same level. So every teacher does not need the same training or the same amount of support. And so we go in and make a more narrow focus on what teachers need, what support, what content, what sort of development. And that's who I work with. And that's how I navigate with these organizations and help to close gaps.
Wow, that is detailed and very in-depth work. I have not come across, and I'm in education groups. I even speak at educational conference. I have one coming up. And most of the groups that I speak with, they're either micro schools, some of them are private schools when I go to these conferences. And I'm saying this because they don't have that system set up that you have, and the services that you offer. Yes, we do know that there is, as you mentioned, the ongoing training for staff. It could be principal, teachers, but you're looking beyond just the staff. You're really developing the leadership in the classroom, right, in the community, in the district, in the geographical area that's divided up in chunks in the states, right? Like each area is divided up. And so what that does is you're essentially creating a system similar to the days of old, and or in other countries that have it, where now everyone's responsible for the upbringing, for the education of the child, of the children, and they could be Black and brown, whatever ethnicity they are from. I recognize where your focus is, right? Because you're diversity and inclusion. And so that is rare to find, especially someone with your credentials that's coming in. You travel 10% of the country already. And 10% is a lot. It doesn't seem like a big number. It's a big number, yes?
It is. And of course, with all of that, seeing the different state standards, how different states have adapted to the standards, how their teacher preparation programs have prepared new teachers to go into the classrooms. And so just having more of a broader lens of what issues are actually taking place within our country, I know exactly where to go to pinpoint this is where we start. And so that me being a military spouse gives me that type of advantage to be able to do so. And I focus primarily on Black and brown students because historically they have been the most underserved communities, and the achievement gap for Black and brown students has remained the same in the past 30 years. There has been little to no growth whatsoever, in spite of new technology, in spite of all of the research. And so that lets me know it's not the technology and it's not the research. We have to have more training and more hands-on support with our mindset. And so all of my trainings and all of my coaching sessions begin with work on the mindset. Why are you here? Why are you doing this? Why is this important to you? And after we get past the whys, it's how are we going to do this? And so it's really just having someone to, again, support them each step of the way from designing their classrooms, because that's important for how classroom behavior is going to play out, to lesson planning, to internalizing an entire unit. How are we going to teach this? How are we going to incorporate hands-on and project-based learning? What technology are we going to use? Pretty much just making sure that as times change, the mindsets of the teachers are also changing and evolving, but we're also evolving and equipping our students to live in a society that is quickly changing. So, yeah.
That's very commendable. I will say that because one, I recognize it's not easy. So good on you and thank you. Wholeheartedly, thank you for what you're doing. And two, I love your approach of the mindset first and getting into the why. It's not about going in and saying, this is a system, this is the formula, this is my result, and this is going to work. Which many, now we live in such a time that this is what we're seeing being spewed out, right? This is the result, this is going to work, apply it. And if it doesn't work well, I'm not sure it should work. You're taking this more personal approach, and I can't wait to hear your story about why you're taking this personal approach. And you're also getting into the mindset. And for someone to be able to say, I want your mind to be aligned so that you are aligned with your students. You don't necessarily have to walk with their shoes, but you need to be able to empathize with them so that when they show up Monday to Friday for how many hours, 40 hours in that week, or sometimes longer, depending if there's after school programs or whatever there is, that they are being primed, they're full of purpose, they're excited to be there, and they are ready to learn, they're ready to grow. They're ready to say, yes, I can be that engineer. Yes, I can be that entrepreneur. Yes, I can be the doctor or whatever it is that they want to be. Tell us a little bit about your story in your why this is important to you, and how did your mindset shift? Because as I mentioned, you started off with the mindset and getting into the why. That is some deep psychological work that needs to get done. So please share.
Okay, so my why is because I have seen the evidence of what education can produce. My why is rooted in my mother's upbringing. And so my mom was one of 5 children, born and raised raised in Birmingham, Alabama during the Civil Rights Movement. And so her being one of 5 children to a single parent home, she lived in poverty and didn't have many opportunities. But she put herself through school, got her master's, got her doctorate degree, and was able to put me and my 2 other siblings through college. We all have our bachelor's and our master's degrees. She was able to build her dream home. She's able to drive her dream car, and all of these opportunities that have just come her way. She's an author. She's been a college professor. I mean, her list is endless. But I say all that to say this is the power of education. To see that she's able to live out her dream life, and it didn't come at a price of being an entertainer or being an athlete or just all of the stereotypes that the media shoves down our throat as to say this is all that Black people are able to achieve. She defied those odds and showed me that if you use your brain, if you challenge yourself, if you push yourself to continue to grow and attain knowledge, your opportunities are limitless. And so seeing the fruits of her labor, I now understand the true value of education. And I want to instill that into the minds of every Black and brown child to know that you don't have to just be an entertainer. You don't have to be just a YouTuber, because that's the new thing these days. You don't have to just play basketball or football to live the type of life that you want to live. And essentially, all of those things can be taken from you. You get an injury, you're out of the sport. You know, you get canceled because the day's culture is cancel culture. You say one wrong thing, you're no longer, in entertainment, and all your advertisement funds deplete. But if you have education in your mind, that's something that no one can take from you. The skills and the strategies that you learn from education, you can then apply to something else that you love and make a living off of that. And so it's really just exposing them to the power of education and what it can do in your life and how it can transform you. So that's my why.
100%. Yeah, no, I love that. And what a amazing example. Like, we're just saying it's an amazing example, but that was such a great mindset shift that your mom had, right? She knew how she grew up, but she had this desire for a particular life. And then she had her children, and she loved her children so much. So the best gift she could give you and your sister was an educated parent. Mm-hmm. So that you guys can also not only see it, but to also be educated as well, right? Mm-hmm. And it's such a, there is, for generations, many people fight for this, right? Mm-hmm. The Civil Rights Movement, we fought to be in the schools and to get the teaching, the learnings, right? There was marches for this, people, it goes on and on. And so I am a huge advocate for education as well. I went to school, and it makes I love your why, because your why resonates. And now we're living, as you said, in such a time we're seeing, and I'm just using LeBron James because everyone knows him, even though he is at the top of his game, he's older and he's still on the top of his game. He did not settle. Right. He did not settle, right? He did his high school. I think he went on to college. But the point is, he created business. He used his mind. Yeah. He still got educated. He surrounded himself with people. Right. And then he still had to learn. He still had to be educated, maybe not in the traditional sense that we may know of it, but he did it so he could build the empire that he built. He doesn't even need basketball. Right. As you're saying, right? He doesn't need it. Exactly. But it's exactly like what you're saying. And so good on you for that. I really love that. So what are the results that we can see? So you come to my district, we have a conversation, you do your spiel, and I'm like, you know what? I think our students are doing great. My district is in the top 10%, for example. I can say my district is in the top 10%. Why do I need you? Why do you need to be here? Right? And so take me through that process in one, if a district is already doing well and the students are doing well, why your service is still a necessity, And then also on top of it being a necessity, what results would I get? Not only if they're maybe not in top 10%, but what are the results that any school can get by having you on their team and supporting them? And you supporting them, sorry.
Well, first I will look at the data of their students of color, if they're in the top 10%, and really try to figure out if they need my help at all. Because if they're in the top 10% and their Black and brown students are performing high, then they don't need me. That is not my target school. That's not my target audience. Apparently, whatever it is that you're doing is working. And again, that's not my focus. I go where there is a true need, because data does not lie. And so you cannot finagle numbers and make your school out to be something that is not, when all of this information is public. And so I specifically target schools that are in need. I specifically target Title I schools because that is where the majority of Black and brown students are. And so that's where I go. I believe that is my calling. Those schools are fine. So,
but you know what? I like what you said, though. I really love this piece when I presented the question, oh, well, my school is in the top 10%. But you said, I'm looking at the data of the Black and brown students in your school. Are they in the top 10%? Because the data doesn't lie. So the school as a whole may be there, but what about those that...
brown students? Yes. Yeah. If they are not in the top 10, then you absolutely need me. But if they are, then you don't. Which is very rare. So the necessity is literally that, because again, say that is a top performing school, but their Black and brown students are not in the top 10%, then that shows that there are some teachers within that organization that need some mindset work. There are some teachers who need more training on working with children from diverse backgrounds, that need training on empathizing, that need more training on understanding real culturally responsive practices. And when I say that, a lot of teachers, just based off of observations and again, visiting schools throughout our country, they hear the word culture and just get stuck and don't realize that the rest of it is that you have to make it relevant and you have to respond to the culture, which speaks more to the instructional practices. So how are you leveraging your instructional practices to meet the needs of the culture of the students that you teach? So it goes beyond just building relationships. It goes beyond utilizing rap music or hip hop culture or making a TikTok dance. It's so far beyond that. And so that's where I provide the necessity. Are you truly being culturally responsive and using the relevance of that culture to enhance your instruction, to close the gap so that they are in the top 10%? That's it. So what they get when they so the result.
I was just like, I love it. You just spewed the fire right there. And it was like, okay, well, yes, now I understand.
So that's what they get. Yeah. Those are the results. We get transformation. We get evolution. We get teachers who are no longer dependent on small things, on going to somebody else. My job is, while I want to be a resource, my job is to truly equip you so that eventually you don't need me. Yeah. Because what are you learning if I'm holding your hand for 5 years? You have to take what the knowledge that's being given and make it your own. And so that's really a big piece of it. Again, going with that mind, how are we changing and evolving your practices for the better and for the greater good of those that are underserved? Once there is a proficiency in every area that I believe has an impact on those students, and I say if we need to put a quantitative number on it, 80 to 85% proficiency is the goal. And so once that's been attained, my job is done.
Good. I love it. And that's a good number too, right? 80 to 85%. That means you're in that A standard, A+ standard, or coming into like the A A plus area.
It's easily attainable, and
it's attainable.
Right. Yeah, and once you reach that, the gap's closed, and it's the only thing left to do is take those students higher. So from there, the only way to go is up.
I know in the US, it's huge. It's what? Almost like how many? Half a billion people, really? When you think about it, when you look at the numbers. So there's a lot of schools and a lot of people you need to help. This might seem far-fetched, but can what you do work in other countries? Because now we have so much globalization. We have people, in different countries living. And so there are, they have their system that is already in place. Mm-hmm. So can what you're doing eventually, let's say in 10, 20 years, be utilized globally? Mm-hmm. Or utilized in the UK, for example, or in Switzerland or something? Because there's a lot of Africans that they're migrated into the UK. They are living in these lovely countries as well. So can what you're doing be globalized as well?
Absolutely. The framework is fairly simple, but of course you may have the ingredients, but you may not necessarily know how to put those ingredients together all the same. That would come with training, just to understand the mindset and why everything is rooted or designed in the way that it is. But it absolutely can be done globally. And I think what more people need to understand is when we improve the lives of the Black and Brown community, our global economy will go up. Yeah. This is a win for everybody. If we're one society and we're all working together, why would you want to see another? Because as the human body, we're all a part of it, right? So why would you want to see a part of the human body struggle and not down, which is ultimately going to bring the greater good down? Whereas if you lift one up, you ultimately lift up everybody, because those that are in the positions of power, they're already there. So how much more stronger could our global economy be? How much more stronger could our workforce be if we actually took the time to educate and give our students the ability to think critically, to problem solve, to do all of those things, learning how to truly empathize and work with one another, just from people who are from different backgrounds? We will be so much more stronger and so much more of a force together than we are divided. I know that sounds cliche, but it's ultimately the truth. And so absolutely, this can be done on a global level, because mindset work is needed all the time. Biases need to be checked all the time. Instructional practices need to be revised and updated all the time. Even as educators, our job is to continuously learn. If you stop learning, or if you feel like after 10 and 15 years, you know all there is to know about education, you're wrong. Because life is constantly changing. The students are changing. So you even have to learn new ways to relate to them, new ways to connect and communicate with parents. And so all of these things play a part. And it's not just isolated to the United States. It's happening everywhere. Technology is happening everywhere, and it's reaching students everywhere. So with that, there's going to be change. And with that change, the mindsets and the practices have to change as well, regardless of your location.
Well, I thank you for your time. I enjoyed this conversation. I actually learned a lot more about what you're doing, the impact that you're having, and truly the impartation that you are imparting to the leaders in these communities throughout the United States, because just from you have to move around, your husband moves around sometimes, right? Yes. So yes. I love that. And I love, depending on if he's posted wherever he may be posted, that your work can continue. You could either do it via technology and or in the new country, because your system works and it's all about the systems. I mean, in marketing and business, if you don't have a good system, it collapses. So you made sure that your system is fortified, and I love that. Before we go, what message or what insights can you give to leaders, conscious leaders that are out there? They could be in education, they could be anywhere. What is your parting words to us today?
As a conscious leader, I will leave you with the words to truly reflect on your practices, reflect on how you show up, reflect on how you listen, and how you execute your mission. It's imperative to demonstrate the results that you want to see from those that you work with. It's imperative to demonstrate that you resonate with them, that you can relate with them. And it's important to serve those that serve you. And so I believe that that's the key to conscious leadership: reflection, being aware, and truly serving those who serve you. And when you serve, you naturally lead.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Yasha, for being here today, for sharing your insights, your wisdom, and thank you for really helping to raise the next generation of leaders, not only in our district and in our school system and community, but the future leaders, the children of tomorrow. Stay tuned next week for another episode. Have a great day, everyone.